Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode. Today, I'm going to tell you about my toughest flight ever, and that is flying to Oshkosh and back. This is the actual truth of what happened along the way and back. Also, we're going to talk about the border crossing, the U.S. That didn't go smoothly either. So we're going to cover that crossing into the U.S. and back and what I experienced on that trip. So stick with me and let's get to it. Alright, so if you already follow the channel, you know that I had a first failed attempt on the way to Oshkosh. If you haven't seen that, just hit the link above and you can watch that at your leisure. The trip was from Calgary down to Swift Current in Saskatchewan, where I was supposed to spend the night, and then cross over into the States and head out to Oshkosh about a week before. What I may not have shared in that other video is that on my landing on the way in to Swift Current, I kind of tapped the brakes a little harder. So I put a bald spot on that tire.
All right, this is the second attempt at heading out to Oshkosh. At a late start this morning because of haze and a few clouds. It's already hot out here. So as you see, I've got the sticker. It's not pretty to see on camera, but it's about me right now, not you.
So the haze and cloud that I just mentioned, the reality is it was clouds right down to the ground, about 100 feet above the ground. The plan was to get to the airport at 7 a.m. and I get there and I had to wait a couple of hours before everything cleared and I could take off. You can see here the front view of that exact clip that we just saw, how visibility was squat. Let's call this thing number one, weather getting in the way on the first leg of my trip. Now to thing number two, communication and radio. As I approached the crossing to Williston, North Dakota, Salt Lake couldn't hear me, couldn't understand me. I could hear a little bit of something, and you'll hear it in the radio. You actually hear it in the video. But when you're flying the plane with the noise of the cockpit and the radio squelched and everything fixed, yeah, you didn't hear it too well. And thank God for that other pilot who was relaying the message back and forth between my plane and Salt Lake. So let's take a listen.
Salt Lake City Center, Lancer, Canadian Foxtrot Zulu Sierra Zulu. Salt Lake City Center, Foxtrot, Canadian Foxtrot Zulu Sierra Zulu. Salt Lake City Center, Canadian Foxtrot Zulu Sierra Zulu.
Someone's trying to call me. It's very unreadable. I can't make out the call sign. Sorry about that.
That's Salt Lake. It's Zulu Sierra Zulu looking for the flight following.
It's a little better. Okay. What was the call sign one more time?
I think it was Charlie Fox, Zulu Sierra Zulu. They're looking for flight following.
Charlie Fox, Zulu Sierra Zulu. Flight center squawk 4010.
That's Zulu Sierra Zulu. 4210 Fox. Can't figure this out range. Confirm that was 4210 Foxtrot Zulu Sierra Zulu.
Confirm. It's 4010. 4010.
4010 for Zulu Sierra Zulu.
Now that we got that sorted out, I was on my way to Williston. The only thing is the Salt Lake didn't have, aircraft type, actual destination or any of that information. So he happened to come on a few minutes later.
Zulu Sierra Zulu. Can you hear me on this transmitter?
Zulu Sierra Zulu, I rate you 3-5.
Zulu Sierra Zulu. Say your type of aircraft and your destination, please, sir.
Lancer 360 Williston, currently 5,500 feet, approximately 25 miles northwest.
Zulu Sierra Zulu. Roger, radar contact, and Wilson altimeter 2992.
And I continued on to land the plane. So I got through the customs process without any issues at all. But I was forgetting something. I wasn't sure what it was. Pass customs, check. P-brake, check. Make sure the plane would get fueled, check. Oh wait, close the flight plan. So thing number 3, didn't close the flight plan. When I finally remembered to close the flight plan, I called on the phone, and it seems that they had started this search and rescue process. Or so the person on the phone told me. They said they were 15 minutes late and started the procedure where they call different places, and they happened to contact the customs officer, which was in my flight plan, and he said, no, I had arrived a while ago. So flight plan was closed off. But still, thing number 3, the flight plan. So we're done with customs. And by the way, super nice guy over there at customs. They were really helpful, given it was the first time I'd ever flown into the States in my plane. They were super helpful. So got back in the plane. Next leg was from Williston to Aberdeen, South Dakota. Lined up, took off. Everything was fine. It was starting to get really hot as the day wore on. And I found it a little strange that there was a lot more of a breeze than normal when I've got the vents open in the plane. Which brings us to thing number 4. Canopy opened in flight. Now, it's impossible to close the canopy on a Lancer when you're in flight. You actually have to land the plane and give it a tug and close it off. So I had to turn around, land back in North Dakota in Williston, kind of taxied back towards the FBO and customs, closed it up, lined back up, and took off again. Back on track on our way to Aberdeen. Easy peasy, right? Nay, I say. It turns out there was a massive inversion right in my path. So item number 5 for the day, 5, winds, inversions to be exact, and tons of turbulence. Doesn't come across on the cameras, but it was really, really bad. Bumps and all, I continued to Aberdeen Airport, where I landed and was so exhausted from the flight. I guess I could have made it to Oshkosh that day, but it would have been pushing it with all the stuff that was happening during the day. So I decided to call it quits for that late-ish afternoon and spent the night in Aberdeen. The Aberdeen Flying Service folks were awesome. Sam, you're fantastic. Great guy to talk to. I was talking to one of the instructors there as well. They took care of me. Got a crew car, told me where to go eat, told me which hotel to go to. So they were awesome. And that was it for that first day. Next morning started off really well. Left Aberdeen and was heading out to Mankato. But guess what? Along the route, a bit more turbulence. So we'll just call this a 5B more turbulence, this time in South Dakota. Dakotas don't really like Tony. Mankato is a pretty cool place to land because it is the home of Minnesota State University, and they've actually got a flight school there, so everything is purple. Go Mavericks, I think. I was about 90 minutes out, and I figured might as well have full tanks in case I get delayed over some lake somewhere as I approached Oshkosh. I was almost there. What could go wrong? Well, guess what? That smoke from Canada got in the way. It was pretty bad, and you can see it in the videos right now. It's like visibility was poor. I tried in the 3000s, the 4000s, the 5000s, the 7000s. No matter what, it wasn't any better. It was better closer to the ground than it was higher up. So let's call this number 6, smoke from the north. And from there we made it into Oshkosh. Of course, there's a whole other video, and you can check the link above. So after a couple of days at Oshkosh, it was time to head back home. I had meetings on the following Monday, so instead of rushing through this, I decided to take off on the Thursday. Who knew that that's when everybody else takes off? Again, remember, I've never flown into Oshkosh. It started backing up about an hour and a half, supposedly. So myself and a bunch of other pilots decided to sit down and chat for a while. Eventually, we got to take off. Well, from the time I got in my plane to the time I was about to take off All the cameras died. Nothing was working anymore. It was bloody hot. This picture is the only record of how I felt as I was 3 planes away from taking off, and it lasted forever. So about 40 minutes I was on the ground before I actually got to take off. So wonderful number 7. It was a great trip at Oshkosh, but number 7 departure in like I think it was 32 degrees Celsius or 33 degrees Celsius from Oshkosh. So number 7 departing Oshkosh on a Thursday when everyone else was doing the same thing. And if that wasn't enough, there was a storm coming in from the west. So it was a bit of a rush to get to the next airport. I decided to go with Familiar and went back to Mankato. It landed there, and they were nice enough to put the plane in the hangar for me. And thank God they did, because whoa, what a storm it was. I showed a clip of this in the last video, but it was a doozy. I'm so glad and so thankful for them there that they put my plane in a hangar with some fancy pretty jets. Next morning, everything cleared out, and I was on my way to Aberdeen and then off to North Dakota in Williston, where I had originally crossed. However, I had to stop in Estevan and stay there for a few hours. Sam helped put my plane in a nice hangar while a massive storm hit there. So that would be number 8. On my routes to Williston, I got number 9 because I got bounced around. There were clouds everywhere, so it was above, below, left, right. I mean, there were almost no clear spots. Tired, exhausted, I decided to call that my number 9 and spend the night there. So the idea was that the next morning I would get up at 7 a.m., cross north for about a 30-minute flight, land in Estevan, pass Canadian Customs, and then head west to Calgary. However, there was clear weather everywhere except in Williston. I could not take off till about 10 o'clock. So that was number 10. Mother Nature just hates me on long trips. And off I went. Instead of going to Estevan, I decided to go to Lethbridge to the west. So this is the big one, number 11. After all that bad weather, I finally had some clear skies. So I was on my way west towards Lethbridge, Alberta, which is where I was supposed to land. I had checked the note times, everything was fine, or at least I thought everything was fine. And I'm about 20 miles, 25 miles out when I finally got a hold of the ATIS, and I could hear the ATIS, and he said something about air show. And I went, what air show? Eventually called Center, got a hold of Center, and they told me there was an air show. To which I said, well, you know, I've got to land. This is where my planned customs landing area is. They were real great in helping me out. His first offer was to call the air show boss and ask him to stop the air show so I could land. To which I then began to pray and said, please don't allow it, because I don't want to be landing and have a whole bunch of pissed off people watching me land. I'd probably end up in the newspapers the next day. So we worked it out. I diverted to an alternate airport, landed, cleared customs, and then headed back to Disbury, my home base. And that's the trip. So will I do it again? Hell yeah. I'm already starting to plan for next year, what I need to bring, what I don't need to bring, and maybe a little extra buffer before and after I get to Oshkosh. So that's it. So here's the experience I had crossing into the US and back into Canada. I covered this in my pre-Oshkosh videos, but this is what actually happened. Heading into the States, it's a two-step process. The first step is actually with the customs. So you file your EAPIS, as I've mentioned in the past. You go on the FAA site, fill that information in, and send it in. What I did is I immediately called Williston and to talk to the officer. In my particular case, what happened is that officer was going to be there the next day. So he said, okay, I give you approval, no problem. In my case, because my first failed attempt, I had already spoken to him once before, so, we were familiar with each other. So he cleared me and said, okay, I give you the right to come in, permission granted to get into the States. The second half of it isn't really customs, but actually, when you arrive into the area where you've got to cross into the States, you've got to, as they shown in this video, you've got to speak to center. In this case, it was Salt Lake Center. I think I kept saying Salt Lake City Center, but it's Salt Lake Center. And you just communicate, where you are and where you plan on going and type of aircraft and that type of stuff, as shown in the video. Now, the problem with me specifically is that I was told, oh, you got to be at least 7, 8, or 9,000 feet. So I think I was a little over 7,000. I figured, oh, that was enough, and it didn't work out that way. So that's the two-step process. When you land, the guy comes out with a Geiger counter of some sort to check for, nuclear stuff. I then grabbed all my paperwork, got out of the plane with the permission of the customs officer, went into the office, asked me a few other questions, and that was it. It was kind of like, you're cleared, here's your permission, here you go, and off I went and flew in with throughout the States. On the way back, you've got to file an EAPIS to leave the U.S. Now, the EAPIS, it turns out, because I had a lot of, missed, oh, I'm going the next day, and it's like, oh, no, I couldn't make it that day, go the next day. Or then I changed my destination, and instead of crossing north into Estevan from Williston, North Dakota, I was going west towards Lethbridge. So, they ask you where you're leaving from. So when you leave from Oshkosh and you fly directly north, let's say, you put Oshkosh as your departure. So in this particular case, the EAPIS leaving doesn't seem to be as critical. You got to do it. But, I changed, I think I rebooked it 3 separate times as just 3 completely separate things. There's no big fanfare when you're leaving the States going into Canada. Now with Canada, what I did is I booked the flight and did everything. I got a confirmation number, kind of did an interview thing with Canadian Customs, because I was going to be landing at a CAN pass, and for me that means that I land at one area and there's really nobody there. If somebody comes out to meet you at that airport, they come out to meet you. If they don't, they don't. I explained the CAN pass stuff in a previous episode. So what I did was I called, they gave me a confirmation number saying everything was fine, and then I flew off, to Canada and crossed. So as I was approaching Lethbridge, what happened is that air show. The air show was already there. I guess I happened to the air show. And what happened is I was in the air, and I forget who I was talking to, I forget who it is out there now, but I was speaking to them on the radio, and I said, well, I've got to go to this place. And they said, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. And the first person that I spoke to on the radio said, well, you got to call the arrivals for the Canadian Customs and let them know. I said, well, I'm in an airplane, I'm flying. It's not like I can pull out a cell phone and talk to someone. So they did that communication for me, so I'm real thankful for that. And they were supposed to send me at one of 2 airports, and they gave me another airport. And I've got a strict minimum of 3,000 feet in hard surface, and they were sending me to a 2,800 foot runway grass strip, and I wasn't going to do that. So they accommodated me, and in the video that we just watched, that's the airport I landed at, which was Milk River. It was uneventful. I landed. I called on the phone. I said, I've arrived here in Canada. They said, do you have anything to declare from the night before? When I called them to tell them, hey, I'm, coming back to Canada, you kind of make your declaration over the phone. That was my experience. And they said, have you got anything else to declare besides what you already declared over the phone? I said, no, nothing has changed. And all right, you're free to go. Here's your confirmation number, which was the number they gave me to start off with. And that was it. And I was on my merry way, and it was done. So for years, I've been panicking about this, and people were saying it's really easy. It's not that bad. Everybody along the way, both in Canada and the US, really want to help you out with it. So I encourage you to do it and give it a shot. All right, so we'll see you on the next one.